Good afternoon, everyone. It is January 6th, and I want to talk about some of the rumors I've been hearing about the U.S. equipment that we potentially could be providing going forward. Now, Bloomberg reported a couple of days ago that the U.S. may be sending Bradley fighting vehicles to Ukraine. I haven't heard any confirmation, but interestingly, Bloomberg has been pretty correct when they've made predictions on the equipment the U.S. is sending. In my opinion, this is a wonderful idea, and I support giving Ukraine Bradley fighting vehicles wholeheartedly. And it's a great piece of equipment, but this also creates a trend for other countries to follow, as there's rumors that France might be sending a similar fighting vehicle, same with Germany. And I want to talk about these vehicles briefly so you can kind of get an idea of their capabilities, and then I'm going to discuss why I think we should give Ukraine as much equipment as possible. So this is a Bradley fighting vehicle, and it is not a tank, despite being tracked. It is a tank killer, though. It's incredibly effective. In fact, the U.S. has used them against Soviet tanks. The same tanks that are being used in Ukraine were used by the Iraqis in the Gulf War, and these were very effective. They come with two anti-tank tow missiles, which are that little brown oval or brown black oval that you see up there. And as well as a 25 millimeter Bushmaster chain gun. That's their main gun at the front. Now, that gun is very effective against other fighting vehicles and effective at long ranges. It's really reliable too, has great gas mileage and a max speed of about 40 miles an hour going cross country. The maintenance on it is relatively low and provides a lot of troop carrying capacity in the back. So this is what the U.S. is looking to provide. Now, France has said that they may be providing AMX 10RCs, which is pictured here, and it has a 105 millimeter main cannon, very effective against other tanks, and a 12.7 millimeter anti-air machine gun. Both the Bradley and the French version and the German version actually have coaxial machine guns as well, and are very good against the Russian armor systems. Notice this is wheeled, not tracked, so it's a little bit faster. These are low maintenance, great gas mileage, and they have a lot of great capability across terrain. Similar to the U.S. Striker, although the Striker has 8 wheels rather than the 6 here, and is set up in different variants, but also very capable weapon. Then finally, we have the German Martyr, which is also very capable. It has the Milan anti-tank system and a 20 millimeter cannon on it, also coaxial machine gun. All three of these systems have great firepower. None of them are tanks, but the only downside is training and parts, but that should be overcome. So all three of those are very capable fighting vehicles. They have short logistics lines. They're easy to learn. It only takes a few months to learn them, probably by Ukrainian warfighters. And it'll only take a few months more to get the logistics supply chains on those up and running. So I fully support giving the Ukrainians these vehicles. But I've also changed my tone a bit. I fully think that we need to be giving Ukraine Abrams tanks or German's Leopard tanks or whatever means to absolutely defeat Russia. And I've changed my position on this because it has become abundantly clear that Russia is not going to stop. Even in defeat, I don't believe Russia is going to stop. So we need to equip the Ukrainians in a way that they are more powerful than Russia. And we need to get away from this idea that we will be escalatory. The West will be escalatory by providing weaponry that absolutely would destroy Russian capability. And the reason we need to stop seeing Russia in a way that it'll be escalatory is that we need to see the complete incompetence of the Russian military for what it is. Russia has propagandized this image of the 10-foot tall Russian super soldier for the past 8 years, since Crimea. They've done it actually for longer, but really it's only been infiltrating the Western media in the last 8 years. This is where that woke Western soldier comes from, this idea that we're focused more on wokeness in the West than on actual war fighting. That couldn't be further from the truth. And when news agencies like Fox News regurgitate it, it is absolutely a regurgitation of Russian propaganda being either directly or somewhat covertly fed to them. The Western military is far more capable and far more deadly than the Russian military, and that is abundantly clear. And because of that, we need to stop being afraid of their escalations. The other reason is Russia is not going to stop if they lose, which they will lose, even if there's another mobilization. Mainly because Russia is fighting the way they did in Chechnya in the 90s. They're fighting like Saddam Hussein did against the US in 91. The US has advanced that 30 years to a level of warfare that is clearly more technologically, more intelligent, more capable than the 90s Russia style fighting that they have kind of held on to. But the reality is Russia and the Russian people are accustomed to taking heavy combat losses, and the political blowback for losing 100,000 soldiers as they have is much smaller than they would see in any Western nation. But that high combat loss rate is depleting the experience pool for the Russian military. It's dumbing it down. The Russian population is being dumbed down as the intelligentsia is fleeing the country. I've already talked about this. This means that Russia is more likely to take foolish risks on the battlefield, but also in business, and offer bad assessments to the Kremlin from their lesser capable junior leaders, as most of the war-capable junior leaders have died. This means that Putin is surrounded by yes men. This means that they're less experienced in the ranks, and so they are feeding bad information. And couple that with the Russian insensitivity to casualties, it means Russia won't back down willingly. In fact, now that the cat is out of the bag, I believe that Russia is more prone to start fights than end them going forward. So they have to be stopped with force, and this means equipping the Ukrainians right now with the ability to destroy Russia. This idea that if we're soft on Russia, the Russians will magically transform into a Western-style system and behave like good citizens on the global stage, aligning with the interests of the West, practicing the freedoms and human rights that we do, is complete nonsense. It's not going to happen, at least not with the current state of things. And even then, I doubt a regime change is going to bring that about. It never has in Russia. Putin's efforts to become more globally aligned were merely a tactic to gain more resources so that he could execute his ultimate plan as he is right now. This is why Finland, Poland, the Baltics all saw the writing on the wall. When Major General Budanov of the Ukrainian Armed Forces said, or military intelligence said, that even if the Russian land forces are ejected, they will continue to be a thorn in Ukraine's side by firing mortars, missiles, and other skirmishes into Ukraine, war stocks permitting, he was correct. Russia will continue to try to disrupt Ukraine so long as almost a middle finger to them for not winning. And the Polish, Finns, and other Baltic nations are arming themselves because they know Russia. They understand Russia. They understand Putin needs Russia to be in a permanent siege-like state, similar to that was during the Cold War, where they're surrounded by Nazis or now Satanists or transgenders or whatever along its borders, so that they can dupe the Russian people into willingly maintaining a dictatorship for Putin. The idea that Russian enemies are everywhere goes back hundreds of years. Sometimes it was real. The Nazis did invade Russia. But since 1945, it has been a convenient lever to exact authoritarian regime systems on the Russian people. Now, because Russia is simultaneously pathetic and ignorantly determined, it's time for the U.S. to give Ukraine what it needs to be more powerful than Russia. And if you ever needed an example of this working before, just look at Europe during the 20th century, when the United States equipped Europe to be more powerful than Russia so that we wouldn't have to go to war with Russia over what is essentially now an ideological difference, period. People will say this is about resources, and somewhat it is for Russia because they're losing people, they're losing resources. But the reality is there is an ideological difference on how to conduct business around the world, and Russia is now trying to use its force and its tactics to exact what it wants in the world. And that's wrong.